Tastes like a char grilled salty steak. Thank you for joining me again today on another McIntyre's Malts tasting and review video. Today we have one that is an interesting whiskey to say the least. This one makes up part of the Flora and Fauna series from the stable of Diageo Distilleries, and this one is the Benrinnes 15-year-old. So in Australia, these ones are sort of, I guess, you've kind of got to go hunting for them. They're not exactly the easiest whiskies to come by. They're really ones that I think you would probably go hunting for if you were aware of them. You will, if you do find them at indie retailers around the country. As far as I'm aware, this is the only official original bottling from the distillery itself. This one is 2.5 times distilled, so a bit of a similar approach to, I guess, a Mortlach or even Springbank, a few of those older style distilleries. And I believe that the Benrinnes, the distillery still uses the worm tubs to cool down the distillate as well. Benrinnes has been called a meaty spirit, very similar to a Mortlach if you've ever tried Mortlach or are familiar with it. This expression here is aged 15 years. This is 43% ABV and is most certainly colored and very likely chill filtered as well. So we are going to grab a glass. We are going to pour ourselves the dram, and we're going to get into the nosing and the tasting on the Benrinnes 15 Flora and Fauna. Okay. If you find it in Australia, usually retails in the range of about $150. I've seen it at now starting to creep into $170, and I was able to track this one down for $135, so in that range. Okay, let's begin with the nose. If ever there was a whiskey that was considered savory, this is it, right? Straight away, like saucy notes, like think soy sauce, barbecue sauce, red meats. There's a char smell to it, saltiness. If you think of even like a stir-fried pork, right? This is very much like an almost Asian cooking, Asian sauces, wet meat dishes. That's that kind of scent that it's giving off. Tons of miso. That miso paste, miso soup note. The element that almost catches me is the shallots. That, you know, if you sometimes get miso and it has a little bits of shallot in a soup. A slight sort of vegetal grassy note as well. Okay, let's wait no longer, and let's get a sip of the Benrinnes 15 onto my palate. Slange. Mmm. 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 Oh, hefty. There's a lot going on here, okay? It's almost like there's the sweetness, the first initial part that hit my palate was the sweetness, the sherry influence coming through, and it's like it's doing a battle between the sweet sherry notes fighting against those hefty, meaty, fuller notes that come from that, the worm tubs. There's bitterness now that I guess the umami tastes like a char grilled salty steak, a bloody steak, rare, medium rare. Like it's the most savory whiskey. It's incredible. It's what captivates me, right? Or even like an orange duck. There's like this a sweet but bitter from a citric type note like the orange, but then the meatiness of the duck, very much Asian fusion flavors, Asian cooking big time. This one, it's meaty, it's heavy. Even at 43%, it's still got a lot of heft. It's got substance to it. There's good texture and body. There's a good medium length finish on it. Now I'm left with a bit of a charred woody note that comes out, but like charcoal barbecue, right? Imagine charred barbecue sticks, right? This is it's a good one. It's different. It's one that if you're a fan of lighter whiskeys, you're not probably going to enjoy this one. It's starting to get more of that nuttiness come through now. Think a crackling fireplace with those roasted nuts. The savoriness has started to subside a little bit now, and a touch more of the sweetness is starting to unfold. What an intriguing whiskey, right? Fascinating. Okay, on the final sip and the finish of the Benrinnes 15. Oh, beautiful. It came on much softer on the palate on the second sip. The saltiness, that savory note is it just comes up and envelops your palate out of the back and just comes from nowhere. It just gives you this false sense of security that hefty, salty and meatiness has eased and tempered a little, and you're getting the sweetness from the sherry casks and those nutty, as I say, the chestnut kind of flavors. Beautiful little bit that just makes you think, oh, it's unfolding, right? And it's transitioning, and then all of a sudden just opens up, and then this wave of saltiness comes back in as if you've just, eaten a bloody steak that's had too much salt and soy sauce on it. Like, as I say, salty soy sauce, miso paste. It's just heavy duty. This whiskey, I like it, right? I'm a big fan. I enjoy a good steak. This is not a whiskey for everyone. It's not a beginner's whiskey and may be a little too much or too intense or too overpowering a flavor. It comes across as liquefied meat in a bottle, right? If you love a good steak, you'll love this one. If you aren't that way inclined and heavier, more robust flavors don't appeal to you, then I would probably avoid this one. But for my palate, I recommend it. The Benrinnes 15 is a cool whiskey, very different, very heavy, very full, and a great example of a unique Speyside profile, right? Not the sort of typical expression that you would expect from that region. So if you're a fan of whiskeys that have a little bit more savory and umami and that meaty, heavy note, if you're a fan of Mortlach, you will love this one. So with that one said, I'm going to grab this last little bit. And while I'm enjoying this one, I think you might like to check out this video here that I made earlier. It's got some cool stuff in it. Go and have a look now while I finish this one off. Slanjava.